Hey everyone, welcome to Bitcoin Banter brought to you by the Bitcoin Way. I've got Endi and Tony here. We've got some some exciting news and some funny story that we'll cover at the end, but we can't bury the lead. I mean, I think the most important thing we're going to talk about is the former president of the United States is a convicted felon today. So I'm going to share my screen real quick and yeah, let me see. I got Yahoo News pulled up here. And this is unbelievable. Trump is a convicted felon, what it means for the former president. So the long story short is, I guess the guilty verdict is uh, falsifying documents that supposedly helped him in the presidential election. Why he was found guilty, what the charges are, I think are really less relevant to the conversation, though. Comments. I'm curious to hear. So I've got my opinions as an American and as a voter. I'm curious, sort of the opinions abroad and what you guys are thinking about this.
Well, obviously, this is a whole sham. This is a disgusting, shameful day in the entire history of the United States for a former president to be convicted over such a petty little thing on 34 counts. Obviously, this has nothing to do with justice. This is a hit, from the opposition, likely connected to the upcoming elections, seeing that there's a very high probability that he completely destroys them in the next elections. I personally think by doing this, they've just handed him the win because you can only react this way when you're desperate and you know that you have no chance of winning other than playing dirty. And this is like the common lowest denominator of dirty games that have ever been played. I just don't see how that plays out in the best interest of the current party.
Right. I agree. Andy, what's the word in Norway? Is that where you are right now?
Yeah, I'm in Norway. Enjoying Norway. Oslo Freedom Forum coming up in a couple of days now. So that maybe highlights the word freedom and what we need to focus on moving forward in the world to ensure that every human being are able to have their human rights and enjoy the freedom. And what we're seeing in the world right now, I think we're seeing a lot of the opposite going on, especially with this case with Trump. So yeah, no,
Yeah,
this is this is disgusting. I agree.
it's a mess. Yeah, for me, it's so. I mean, I voted for Trump twice, and in once, both times I voted for him, I was just kind of a blind, down. I hadn't gone down the rabbit hole, right? Like I was voting because like that's what I do as a patriotic American. I, I'll still vote because I think there are like my opinion just is as an American is like we their blood has been spilled for my right to vote. Do I think that voting harder makes a big difference? No. Do I think Donald Trump or Joe Biden or RFK or anyone is going to be the savior? No, they're all going to print money at the end of the day. And I think that's like my single biggest issue. But at this point, I think I think my vote goes to Trump because I think to your point, I think, we've pissed off a huge constituency in the United States over just petty stuff. So that's all I'll say about it. And again, for those of you who that flusters, it's not because I think Trump's a great guy or I would want to model my character after his, but it's more of a message I think that needs to be sent to like the Washington insiders.
Yeah,
So
absolutely, man.
yeah,
Ultimately, it doesn't really matter who wins as long as the separation of money and state is
yes.
cemented. Anyone can be there. It'll make no difference because, at that point, they're forced to do what they're put in that position for. It's to do their job.
Exactly. Exactly. So on the topic of Trump, we'll get off of the sort of political nature of in the scam that's going on. He earlier this week pledged to commute Ross Ulbricht's sentence, which is and this was like something that wasn't even on my radar, a couple of years ago. Like I'd heard of this Silk Road and this and that, but now it's like a rallying cry for I've learned for folks in our space. Do you think first of all, do you think Trump will be president? Like, will they give him a chance, or will he be in prison? And do you think he makes good on this promise?
I don't think he'll be in prison personally. I mean, I hope
Mhm.
not anyhow. And I definitely think he will make good on this promise.
Yeah.
What strikes me as odd is why he didn't do it the first time around he was president.
Yeah.
Like why now? So I mean, it could be like a political move just to gain more votes, sort of like to add the cherry on top to cement his voters. But if it means the release of Ross, then by all means, I'm for it. This guy served way too long already and should have been released a long, long time ago.
Same with Snowden as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Tony, to comment on that, my part of my feeling is, and not to again, like I'm not like this massive MAGA Trump supporter or anything, but I sort of wonder if a lot of this stuff, these topics, Snowden and Ross, and if those have come on his radar recently, like as issues, because like Vivek Ramaswamy seems to have gotten to him on like Bitcoin and crypto is a topic, and there's been a lot of talk about that. I sort of wonder if it just wasn't apparent to him that these were issues that people were concerned about. I mean, I think at the time he took office, like ISIS was running rampant, like there were like all these sort of global issues that he was probably more focused on. He talked so much about border security, which very little was accomplished on, but there were probably a lot of other things that were of concern to him. And, maybe Ross Ulbricht just wasn't a topic that ever even entered his mind.
It's possible. It's just, it is a comment that has come up not just by myself, but by obviously many other people that
Hmm.
shared the same thought. So, why now all of a sudden, and why not back then?
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, it's irrelevant at this point. I just hope that he does make good on this if he's president and he releases Ross, the very next day, as he so clearly stated.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think we're going to have a whole lot of banter on that subject because I think we're all probably hoping for it. Uh, so moving on. So hey, we've got uh, MicroStrategy, like a mini MicroStrategy situation going on. So I'd never heard of this company, Semler Scientific. It's a medical tech company. They're uh, they're taken from the same playbook, and their market cap surged 37%.
Hmm.
Uh, what so I guess my question for you, I think this makes us all bullish. Do you think that having like a smaller company, a lesser known company, probably a less public uh leadership team, do you think that in any way affects the sorts of companies that might now be inclined to get in? Because I understand why companies like Apple or Google, like the big companies, it's a harder thing. They've got tons of investors. There's no like um, but Michael Saylor owns a ton of MicroStrategy. He can make these decisions not unilaterally, but he has a lot of sway. Do you think some of these smaller companies, mid-sized companies that have a leadership team like that, or a CEO like that, are now going to start doing this, or do you think we're still a ways off?
I think a lot more are starting to pay attention. This came as a big surprise to many people. I've never even heard of this company either
Yeah.
until recently. But if some unknown company is doing a copy paste from MicroStrategy, I'm sure there's a lot more unknowns that are paying attention to what's going on in the space, and everybody follows the leader, right? Everybody copies from success, and they want to mimic that same formula so that it applies to them as well. The bigger companies, obviously, there's more red tape and bureaucracy to go through, so they're not as nimble as the smaller ones. But there are way more smaller companies than there are, those gigantic ones, and it's a numbers game at the end of the day. If many of these small to mid-sized firms, follow on that path, it's going to be extremely, extremely bullish.
And especially for the future, I think the only way to survive as a company is to own some Bitcoin. Otherwise, it's going to have the same fate as the fiat system if they're not prepared to own some Bitcoin and to embrace this technology.
Yeah, yeah. I think so many of these companies have reserves and they're looking for a useful way to put it to work. And
Mm.
it's and I understand that it's not necessarily obvious what to do. I mean, treasuries not the best option. You need it more liquid and less volatile. Like the long term, you need less volatile than like the investing in equities or anything like that. You're probably not going to like self-custody physical gold or something. And if you now have the ability to buy Bitcoin for anything that's over a 4+ year duration, it just seems so practical. And obviously that's our echo chamber. I think that, sort of speaking, but I think more people are becoming aware of it. And if we rip from, I don't know what we're sitting at today, 67, 68,000 or whatever, to 150 over the next 12 months, this company's they're going to look like geniuses, and it's just no longer going to be. I heard James Lavish speaking recently. One of the things he said is, for a long time it's been risky to get into Bitcoin, and we're starting to reach the point where you're going to look like an idiot if you didn't get in. You didn't have a 1% allocation, like you didn't have any of your treasury in Bitcoin. Like you don't have to go all in to still see meaningful results from that sort of decision. So
Yeah, 100%.
I'm excited to see. Yeah, Andy.
No, I was just going to say, especially in countries outside of the United States, a lot of companies, especially here in Norway, has been feeling, everything gets more expensive. They do international trade, the local currency weakness, and if some of these companies had some of their money in Bitcoin, they wouldn't go all bankrupt like they're all doing now. There's like there's tons of companies worldwide outside of the United States that are currently going bankrupt because their currency is going down towards the dollar, towards the euro. And if they had some sort of hedge or some sort of insurance which Bitcoin would offer, that wouldn't be the case. So I think more and more companies are starting to see this because they're already starting to feel that their money and everything becomes way more expensive. They have to fire people, and they're looking for alternatives like Sailor did in 2020. So we're probably going to see a lot of more companies starting to make this public that they have some Bitcoin and are going to start to store Bitcoin and eventually probably use Bitcoin as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll be interested to see if these sorts of, as these mid-sized, smaller companies come online, making a similar strategic decision, if any of this, like if they start to adopt the Lightning Network and accept payment in Bitcoin, like I understand that for some that's not tenable. Maybe they are a zombie company and they're trying to recover and they have cash flow issues, and so like maybe taking on Bitcoin as a method of payment isn't economically feasible at the moment. But for those who that's an option, a small percentage today of their payments going to be made in Bitcoin anyway. I wonder if maybe is more like I'll be curious if there's like a right now it's tech companies, if there's like a retailer who takes the playbook. Are they like, hey, why are we not, we trust this as in our treasury, why wouldn't we just want to get paid some of our invoices, in Bitcoin?
Well, there are a lot more businesses that are doing this. You just don't hear about them. Retail that accept Bitcoin, like your mom and pop shops, barber shops, little grocery stores, those that make up like tons of those smaller businesses that nobody really pays attention to, they are accepting Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that, they're not going out there and advertising it. If you're basing your company reserves on fiat only, there's a name for that. It's called poor. Because you're basing it on nothing. What are you basing it on? Whatever amount you have in that reserve, sooner or later is going to end up being a big fat zero. So you want to put it in an asset that appreciates, not depreciates like fiat money. So it's almost suicidal not to consider it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No, Andy, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Tony, was mentioning a barber. Didn't you have a barber, Tony, that earned like 1 Bitcoin over a year
Yeah, yeah.
during the bear market? That was
This
the
was
story.
one this was one of my very first orange peeling stories. It's a barber that I used to visit in Greece, and we became friendly over time. And I asked him one day, I'm like, "Do you accept Bitcoin payments?" He's like, "No, I have no idea what you're talking about." So I explained it to him, and at first, obviously, he was, resistant to the idea. No, man, it's I don't want to risk my money. I work hard all day. I don't want to lose it. Blah blah blah. Anyhow, long story short, I convinced him to try it. I made the first payment in Bitcoin, and I told him, just tell people that you accept it, and just don't spend it. Just that's the key. Just don't spend it. Do me a favor, try it out for a few months. He agreed. After a while, I didn't see him for like a few months, and then when I did see him again, he was so excited. He's like, "Come, I want to show you something." And when I went to see him, he pulls out the wallet, and he had almost a Bitcoin. And I'm looking at him. I'm like, "Did you buy Bitcoin?" He's like, "No, these are people that paid me in Bitcoin." I'm like, I didn't believe him at first. I'm like, "Are you sure?" He's like, "I had no idea. Most of the people that I know have Bitcoin, but none of them mentioned it before."
Where
And
did
that
you say this was? What country was this in?
in Greece.
That is wild. That's wild. I think
Yeah.
the bigger story here though is that Tony was going to a barber.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes he's writing that in the group chat. Still, I don't believe him.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
I've got the pictures to prove it, man. There's nothing like a clean shave,
yeah.
So yeah, so guys like him, that are not, traditionally high education, big companies and all that stuff, they're starting to get it.
Hmm.
But the key here is knowing how to communicate the message in a way that makes sense to normal brains, to simple minds,
Hmm.
that doesn't scare them away from it. Like, it doesn't have to, it shouldn't come across as a big risk. Like, there's no risk if you're doing it in moderation. I mean, you have your regular stream of income. This is like a bonus. So you leave it on the side, you try it out sort of as an experiment, and then you decide for yourself. So anyhow, now he runs a node. He's got way over a Bitcoin. He's invested some of his own money now, obviously on top of what he's making. He's still accepting Bitcoin payments. He's super happy. So I think that was like the best gift I could have ever given him, was that day when I asked him if he accepts Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's cool. And those I think you're right. Those are the company, like you can buy wine, and you can buy, like, there are places you can go to buy things with Bitcoin. I think I think this, company that none of us had ever heard of until this week, them adopting is sort of an indicator that it's a leading indicator that the time for these smaller businesses to front run Wall Street, publicly traded firms, larger
Mhm.
corporations, it's waning. Like, they're not going to be able to do it forever. And hopefully we can get more of these smaller businesses on board before Apple and the massive pension funds and all these others wake
Oh,
up
I'm
to
a
the
hundred. I'm a
solution.
100% convinced that one day you'll see like small businesses like this barber shop, like a grocery shop, that are going to be worth way more than your traditional mid-sized company, which will be struggling financially because they thought fiat was the way to go and they didn't want to change their ways, and now they end up with nothing.
Yeah,
So I wouldn't be surprised. It'd be like the funniest irony to that story.
for sure. Okay, last one. I'm gonna share this, and the whole reason. So I before I share it, I wanted to start just for fun incorporating some peak clown world type stories into the conversation. So this has nothing to do with Bitcoin. It has everything to do with my desire to hear Tony's reaction to next week's nudist
Oh
cycling.
God.
So
Oh
Bear As You
man.
Dare World Naked Bike Ride returns to Toronto.
Jesus
So
Christ.
this was last year's article, but it's I think it's coming up this weekend or this week maybe. So Tony, what's your reaction? Are you flying to Toronto to join the bike ride?
Man, if you want to see mental illness at its finest, it's this. If you want to see a parade of wrinkled, short-dicked men, that's it. This is like it's like, I don't even know how to describe like the state of mind like some clown has to be in to want to go out, dressed that way in public. I mean, at least if you were physically in good shape, it might be worth looking at. But considering none of them come remotely close to anything visually appealing, it's like they should be thrown in jail or into an asylum for even considering like polluting. It's like visual pollution, man. It's
I obviously agree
Horrific.
with you. Hey, here's the upside is that we're finally bringing this message of sun exposure to everyone. Get as much sunlight on your skin as possible. I just wish they'd just do it in the privacy of their backyard.
Well, this is definitely no Victoria's Secret nude parade. I can tell you that.
It sure didn't look like it.
Yeah.
Andy, I assume you're probably not going to be joining the cycling movement anytime soon.
Oh,
Eh,
I'm located in a clown country right now, so I see this on a daily basis. This is nothing new for me.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Andy bikes nude up in the attic.
He's got his stationary bike.
He does it in private, man.
Oh my gosh. Thanks for that mental image. Uh, awesome. Well, hey guys, I think this is a fun one. Obviously, a lot of stuff going on in the world. Yeah, it's a crazy time. Hey, I'm gonna be traveling here soon. I'll be seeing you guys at BTC Prague in a few weeks. I know
Yeah, man.
we'll get together before then. Any parting comments?
Looking forward to to the reunion.
For sure. It's going to be
Yeah.
fun. All righty. Well, hey, for anyone listening, remember, hey, the Bitcoin way, we help you with self-custody. If you want to bring security and privacy to your online presence, check us out. Go to thebitcoinway.com/podcast, book a call. We've got an incredible team and and you can banter with them on these calls as well and talk about nude bike rides if you please. So guys, thanks for joining. We'll connect again soon.
Happy to be here, man. See you later.
Cheers.
Bye
Cheers.
bye.